Hello, I'm Rebecca Windermere, a postdoctoral researcher at Cardiff University. And in this short presentation, I'm going to share some of my key research findings on local community responses to the repowering of onshore wind farms and provide some recommendations for industry. These findings form part of my larger PhD research project, which explored end-of-life decision-making for onshore wind and solar farms in the UK. This presentation will cover the key findings from my research on local community responses to repowering. I undertook surveys with communities living within 3.5 kilometres of 2 wind farms. The wind farms were similar in terms of size, their rural location, and as 2 of the oldest UK wind farms. But the communities responded to the repowering applications in very different ways. My findings provide evidence that communities will not always become accepting of wind farms over time, and therefore they will not always be supportive of repowering applications. I'll discuss some potential industry challenges and also highlight what communities value. And in doing so, I'll provide recommendations for industry. So my research looked at 2 case studies, Kirby Moor in the Lake District and St Breock in Cornwall. Kirby Moor Wind Farm became operational in 1993. A repowering application was refused in 2015, and that application faced over 500 objections. A life extension application was refused in 2017, and that application had over 150 objections. The application was later granted at appeal in 2019. My research of those living within 3.5 kilometres of the wind farm found that 57% opposed repowering and 53% opposed life extension. My second site, St Breock, was operational in 1994. Repowering was granted in 2012, and the repowered site was operational in 2015. The site only faced 5 objections to the repowering application. Of my survey of those living closest to the site, only 11% opposed the repowering. So, of these sites, which were quite similar and of a similar age, the community responded very differently to repowering, and it was worth exploring why. So, in the next few slides, I'll just highlight some of the key findings that have come out of this research. So, firstly, my research found that communities will not always support applications to repower, and there are a number of factors here influencing their responses. Firstly, people are unlikely to support repowering if they don't feel that they've benefited over the life of the existing scheme. For example, if they haven't been using or they're not aware of the Community Benefit Fund or any local projects that it's supported. They may also be unlikely to support repowering if they have a poor relationship with the developer. So if there's a lack of trust with the developer, if they don't know who the developer is or how to get in contact with them, or if they feel that the only time the developer contacts them is during a planning application when they need their support. People may also be unlikely to support repowering due to changes in the surrounding landscape that have happened during the operational life of the existing scheme. This may include the development of further onshore wind farms in the surrounding area, or offshore wind farms, or other forms of built development. It may also include changes in the designation of landscapes nearby, such as protected landscape designations, that may change how people value the local landscape. My research found that features of the original application can return to cause challenges for repowering or life extension. So an end-of-life application can trigger local opposition to resurface. Here it's important to think about the original consent and how it was sold to communities. Some of the oldest wind farms were really emphasised as trials to test wind energy, as 25-year consents that would then be removed at the end of the 25 years. So people who have been living in the area during the life of the wind farm may be expecting its removal. There's another potential issue here relating to decommissioning. So some of the oldest wind farms may have inadequate decommissioning requirements as part of the original consent. So in one of the cases I looked at, the original planning consent required the removal of the turbines at the end of the life of the scheme, but not any of the associated infrastructure, such as that pictured here. So the developer used repowering and life extension as an opportunity to provide enhanced decommissioning requirements and ensure that all infrastructure would be removed from the landscape. However, for local people, this felt like a bribe. They felt like the only way of getting rid of this other infrastructure was if repowering or life extension was granted. And this created further bad relations between the developer and community. My research also found some key aspects that communities value and that positively impact their perception of repowering. Firstly, meaningful community benefits. So, where people can really see the benefits that they've got from the existing wind farm, for example, the projects it's supported and how it's usefully benefited their local area. Communities also value an opportunity to shape the design of the repowered scheme. So when there's really early engagement from the developer and they feel that they can have a meaningful impact in the design of the scheme and the form of future benefits. So really going beyond that kind of token community engagement. In one of my cases, St. Brieuc, people have been able to see both the original and the repowered scheme. And my research found that although for many there were no preference, people were more likely to prefer the visual impacts of the repowered scheme, so the smaller number of larger turbines, than the original scheme. So from these findings, I provided a couple of recommendations for industry. Firstly, it's important that you ensure that communities benefit over the operational life of the scheme. Don't just consider communities at the time surrounding planning applications. So communicate. Provide opportunities to address community concerns and any misinformation that they may have. Ensure that communities are aware of and using the Community Benefit Fund. Perhaps publicise some of the projects that is supported. If you're taking over a site, make sure that you establish good relationships and trust with the local community so they know how to contact you and who you are. My second recommendation is to involve communities from the very start of the repowering process so that repowering isn't imposed on them and they're able to shape all aspects of the scheme. Aim to understand what they want from a repowered site, both in terms of the design of the scheme and inform in terms of community benefits, as a community may not be looking for a community benefit fund, but instead may prefer something such as shared ownership. As mentioned earlier, it's also important to carefully consider how improved decommissioning is presented to ensure that it's not seen as a bribe. So, in conclusion, repowering can provide significant benefits for local communities, but we shouldn't assume that all local communities will support repowering. Considering the context of the site is really crucial. So when thinking about repowering, consider these three questions. What are the conditions of the original planning application? And how was the application sold to local communities? Are they expecting removal? People are likely to remember these original conditions. Secondly, consider what's changed in the surrounding area over time, both in terms of other developments and also changing land designations that may impact how people value the local area. Finally, consider how the relationship with the community has been maintained over time, and if there's any mistrust or miscommunication that may cause a challenge for repowering. I'll leave you with the reminder that good community developer relations and meaningful community benefits are positively correlated with support for repowering and life extension applications. Thank you for watching my presentation. If you've got any questions or would like to discuss my research further, please feel free to drop me an email on the email address provided here. Thank you.